Hello all, it's me Mohammed Isballe, and here I am to make a tutorial on Laravel and Vue.js. So Laravel is a great PHP tool. It helps you to develop really cool Laravel PHP applications. It can be an API, only API application or fully fledged application. And the nice thing about it is very easy to work with other JavaScript framework like Vue.js. So sort of it comes with it by default. So in this project we are going to use Laravel to make API calls. So for now we are going to use an external API calls. For example, this API here, we're going to use this API to get a list of users, and maybe later on we are going to like a user or follow a user or not, and then we need to make our own API calls to make an API calls for our Laravel application to accept API calls and store data in the database and all that. So for Laravel, to start working with Laravel, you need to install some tools. So if you go to the Laravel website, laravel.com, you go to the documentation, you will see some of the tools that you will need to work with Laravel, okay, to develop a Laravel application. Here it is giving you a list of, for this is currently the latest Laravel version 5.8. With this Laravel version, you need these are the prerequisites. You need a PHP version that is above or equals to 7.1.3. you need BC Mat PHP extension, blah blah blah. So most of the time if you install your PHP, it comes with all of these things, or you need to install all these extensions, okay. And for our case, because we are going to store into a database, so we need a database engine. So for now, on this project, we are going to use MySQL, and we will store our favorite users users we desire to follow. We are going to store their ID in a database, so that after it will remind us, okay, these are the users you like and all that, okay. So to install a Laravel project, also you need a composer. After having your Apache, if you are using Linux, LAMP stack. If you are using Mac, you need MAMP, that is Mac, Apache, PHP, and MySQL. For Windows users, I would recommend Laravel. Laravel comes with all the tools you might need. Yeah. So for me, I'm using Linux, so I already have all the necessary software installed, and including Composer, which is very important, which is required for Laravel. So to get a Laravel project, all I need to do is get a new Laravel project. Let me use this option in installing a new Laravel project. So we go to the terminal, then let me cd to the desktop, okay. Then type this, okay, yeah. Type with this command, composer create project, preferred that is preferred distribution Laravel, and the name of the project block, okay. So after doing this, it will install all the necessary things you need for your Laravel project. So that will take time, so let me pause this video while it installs. Okay, now that I have installed a new Laravel project, it have done all the downloads and get the required library files. So now I have to cd into that new project I just created, that is block. And after doing that, let us see that it is, let us just confirm that it is working. PHP add reason, okay. After doing this, you can go to the browser, localhost port 8000, then here it is. So now what we need to do is we need to choose a very good text editor to work on our project. You can use even Sublime Text, Atom, Visual Studio Code. If you are a student, you could also use, you can get PHP Storm with your student email. You can get it for free, so that's what I'm using. So now also I'm going to post the video to open this, my PHP Storm with the project, okay. So here I have opened my PHP Storm, and then I have just opened the project, and it takes to goes straight to the directory where this project is saved. So this one I've saved it in the desktop, so I've choose the project called block. So now if I open it, PHP Storm is going to open this project. So now I don't need this terminal here, because PHP Storms comes with its own terminal. So if I will just use that one. So in case you are using a text editor that doesn't come with its own terminal, you can just use this terminal you have here. Or if you are using Mac, it's also called terminal. Windows, it is called command prompt. Okay, so PHP Storm comes with a terminal, so I'm going to use that terminal, PHP artisan serve. So if I go to the browser again, refresh, the project is still here. So now what I have to do is, because PHP in this project we are going to use Laravel to help us. The main purpose of using Laravel is to help us to store data in the database, to do some backend business. But most of this project is going to be on the front end, which we are going to use Vue.js on. Okay, so VueJs is going to help us to fetch from the other public API. That's the API we are using. This is the public API we are using. It is going to help us to fetch from this public API, and then if we decide to select an individual, let us say this person here, if halt, we decide to like him, so our VueJs is going to send a request to our own Laravel application, and then that request will be received by the Laravel application, and then the user will be stored in the database as one of our favorite users. Okay, so now what we need to do, because as I said, Laravel comes with, they come with the basic thing you will need to start a VueJs, to add VueJs on your Laravel project. So the first thing you need to do is npm install. You run this command, npm install. Okay, this is going to take time to install all the npm packages that you are going to need for this project too. The default packages you are going to need to work on this, to use VueJs on this project. So we are going to allow this thing to load as we go and do some other things. So as you can see here in this Laravel project, if you load this page, this is the view that is loaded. If you make some research about Laravel, it's an MVC framework. MVC, M stands for model, V stands for view, and C stands for controller. So the model helps us to represent objects in our application. The V helps us to view these objects, or to view data from our applications. It presents the data to the end users, and the C, controller, does the the funny business. It does the storing into the database and all the other stuff you need to do. Okay, so here this is a view which will give us information, which will give information to the users. So now what we might need to do in this project, we need to change the view. Okay, we need to use a different view. The only view here is this. This is the only view we have here, that is the welcome view. So to have a view that there's this view, authentication view. To have that view, let us just type a composer command to create all the things that we might need for an authenticated user. So PHP artisan make auth. Okay, so this one will create a view called home.blade, so that when a user is logged in, he will be redirected to this page. Okay, so for us, we need to use this. There's no authentication in this case, we just need this view. That's why I type this command, PHP artisan command. So now what we need to do, we need to go to the route file. So in the root route here, slash, which is this is the view that is published. So now we need to change it to the name home. Okay, so if you come here, you refresh, now the home view is published. You see there is a login and registration, but we don't need this. Okay, so all we need is, we just need to paste our users here, which we are going to fetch from this API. So now that we have first run the npm install, which is going to install all the npm dependencies we might need. So now you need to run another command to start watching the project. So any changes that is done, it will just be saved. Okay, npm run watch. So this is going to compile everything. So when it compiles, it's going to generate a file called, which will be in the public folder, public folder here inside your project. Public, where is public JS is going to, it's going to generate this file. So this is what is going to handle the front end part of your application. Okay, you see, after every generation it will show you this alert that build successful. It have built the project for you. It have built these two files. So you need this one, you need to add this one into your home view. We are using this home view, but this home view is extending another layout called app layout in the layout file app. Okay, in this layout file there is a js/app.js. this is here, but we might need to move it down to the end of this view. Okay, that's all what you need to do. And also dashboard. So let me just remove this, okay, so that it will be empty like this. And let me remove this. Okay, so now we need to create a new div called, div hashtag app. Okay, we need to create a new div and give it an ID app. Here is where we are going to add our Vue components. Vue, in Vue.js, instead all the data you need to present or where you are going to make your application will be on components. So here is where you need to choose, where you need to paste those components. So in Vue.js, for you to go to Vue.js, you need to go to resources, under the folder resources, JS, and here this is the app. This is the app folder, app file, app.js file. This is the root file for your Vue application. This is where it will start executing. Okay, so here you have seen it have imported some this bootstrap imports some useful stuff, some useful things you will need in your Vue application, and then it import this view which is attached to the window, and then you have a list of components. Okay, and then you start this is where you instantiate your Vue object. So what we need to do here, an example component is already registered, and this is the example component. So let us just change this example component. Let us create another component. Right click, new. Because I'm using PHP Storm is well developed, so right now it knows that I'm using Vue.js. It have already suggested name, create new file, new directory, and here it is Vue component, new Vue component. So I can create a new component. Let me name it home component. It have created this home component for me. It did all the necessary stuff. So in case you are using another editor and it doesn't give you all these things, just create a component inside this folder, give it a name .vue, and then type in this. Okay, and be very careful of be case sensitive. Okay, don't start this E with a capital E and all that. So also you should give a name to this component. That is the name of the file, home component. So now after having this component, we have to register the component. Okay, let us just edit this one. Let us just remove this one. So it is in the components folder, and the name of the component is home component. Okay, let us change the ID here. The tag name, home dash component. So let us delete this component, example component here. You don't need it. You don't need to delete it, but let us just delete it. After doing this, now here is where you're going to do all your Vue.js codes. your JavaScript codes here. If you need any custom style for only this component, you do it here. And also here is where you're going to add your template, your HTML codes and all that. So now that we have this component, let us just start with this. Okay, it is advisable, it is required for you to have one element where all your HTML codes will be in. So let us create an HTML div element here, and here is where we're going to put all our components. So now we have home page, or just home. So now if you come here, you refresh this page, nothing, just this F. Okay, this F I probably add F here. Okay, this is the only F's you will see. So for you to make this component here appear on your page, what you need to do, please remember, in this view here, you need to give it an ID app, or any ID which you have to also type in here when you instantiate the Vue object in the app.js file. When you decide to choose your app, which is the default one, which makes sense, that is the same thing that you have to do here. So inside this div, then you list your components, home components. Okay, in the home component, now if you save it, so now this component will be rendered in that on your home page, you see. So whatever you type in your this component will be rendered here. Okay, so let us in the app, let us say that. Okay, so now we have our component, and now what we need to do, we need to load these users. So in this API call, when you make an get API call on this route, here, on this URL, it will give you how many users? 3 users. It will give you 3 users. So you can use page equals to question mark. You can paginate, by the way, question mark page is equals to 1. So now it gives you the first 3 users. If you say page equals to 2, it's going to give you the second 3 users. If you page equals to 3, the third 3 users, and so on. Okay, so what we need to do, we need to start with page 1. Okay, so now what we need to do, we need to start making call to this API. We need to start making API calls to these endpoints and get these users, and then paste them in our component here. So I will really advise for you to have internet where you're going to always check these documentations, because you definitely always need these documentations. I don't memorize offhand all the codes I need to type. So getting started, let me go to the getting started page on the Vue page. It is going to show me what a component need and all that. So let us composing with component. So in our component here, anyway, I think what we need to here is data. You need to instantiate your data, return and then you give your data here. You will have a variable that is going to store users, and this variable will be an array. Okay, so please give me time. Let me confirm this. I don't. Okay, so what I did wrong is a dictionary array. A dictionary array need to start with this. You need to initialize with these columns, with this. I don't know how they are called. So a dictionary array means that every element, instead of integer indexes, it will have string indexes, user as the index here. So whenever you call users, it means this element here, whatsoever elements that are stored here. Okay, so after doing this, now we are going to make an API call which is going to store the data, the users in this variable. Okay, so After this data, we need methods. Let me confirm here. So methods, okay. So by the way, I don't memorize how all these codes. You don't have to. The internet is here for that. The computers are here to do that. So after having these methods, whenever we will have function that will make request to the API to get the users, okay? Get underscore users. Okay, we have a function called get users, and this get users function, with this get users function is going to make an API request to that public API that we are going to use in this project. So for us to make API request, there is a library that is already added by default on all Vue.js here, Axios. So we're going to use this library and make a get request, because this API, this endpoint here is a get, it accepts a get request. Okay, so we are going to make a get request, and the first element, it will be the URL. So page will initially be equals to 1. So what we are going to do, we are going to have another variable that is going to keep track of this, going to help us to make counts. Okay, so initially it will be 0. Okay, so after every call, no, initially it will be 0. Initially it will be 0. Well, let's just keep it 1. So whenever we make a call, it is going to append, it is going to concatenate this string, the URL, with the page count. So whatever is stored here, 1, 2, 3, or whatsoever. So to call that variable, you use this word, because this variable is inside this object. So this is an object here, this dot page. Okay, after that, then type this, then let me check, then bracket open, response. So when a post get request is made here, the response will be returned after this then, in this then block. So we have to get the data that is received. So for us to see what data is received, let us print the response. Let us use this console.log bracket open, and then any data you want to print here. So response. Let us print the response. Let us see what will be printed. So after it, then also you need to catch in case of any errors. In case it fails, the post request fails. Let us just ignore it for now. Let us just assume that there will be no failure. Okay, but you have to go and check your document. You have to go on read Vue documentations to know how to make use of all these libraries. Okay, it is very advisable for you to catch possible errors. There will always be errors, so you need to catch them. Okay, so now we assume that there will be no errors, or we don't care about the errors. So after doing this, let's save this, and then this method is not called, so it will never be called, and we will never know what it is doing. So we need this function with this property. Whenever this component is loaded, whatever functions or whatever Vue codes you put here will be loaded, will be executed first. So now whenever this Vue component is loaded, we want to execute the this.get users function. Okay, so let us save this. But whenever I save this in my Laravel, in my PHP store, these files are generated, and whenever these files are generated, it somehow PHP Storm have to reload it again in memory, so that always affect performance. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to exclude that file so that it will not be loaded. PHP Storm doesn't care about all these files are excluded. These are some non-important library files, so let us ignore inside the public folder too. Let us ignore this folder, this JS, public JS. Okay, excluded. Okay, so it doesn't, whenever any file in that folder is changed, it doesn't load it. Okay, it just ignores it. So now that we at least have something set, so let us see what data will be received from this API call. Let us go to our Laravel project and refresh. So for us to see the console print, you have to press Shift Control I on Chrome. I think in Mozilla it's the same and other browsers, so just figure out, or you right click, inspect, and then after inspecting, go to console, the next tab, console. Then this is what is printed. After making this request, the response is printed here. So you have seen the response, it is showing us some configuration, but what we are interested in is in the data. So let us say response.data is going to print us the data that is received. Let us refresh the page. So you see now it's printing the data. Okay, so the data is here. The data is telling you that the page number, the page number, that is the pagination, page number 1. Okay, one part of the data is page number per page. How many is printed per page? 3. And the total, how many L users are already there? That is 12. And total pages, that are only 4 pages. We only have 4 pages, and then the data is here. Okay, so now what we need to do, page data. Okay, so now what we need to do, actually this is now easy now for us. After receiving this data, then what we need to do is to store the data. The data is the users that we are getting. This data, we need to store it into this variable users. So what we need to do, we need to call this users variable and make it equals to response.data.data, and then this dot page equals to response.data.page. Okay, so after doing this, it is going to store everything, all the needed data into their right places. Now you need to print the list of the users. Okay, let us just see what properties of user is received. Console.log, and then this dot users index 0. Users is an array, so let us just print the first element. The first element is received. It gives you an avatar, that is like a profile picture, an email of the user, first name, ID, and then last name. Okay, so that's good. So this is what is stored in this variable. Now you need to print this list, these users. So what we need to do, let us have a div, and let us use the Vue for iterator. So this will help us to iterate through a variable that have elements. Okay, after each step, store the element as user in users. So what this does is that it helps us to go through users. This variable have to be something that have to be an iteratable. I cannot pronounce sadness. So after each step, each element will be stored in this variable here. Now you can print this element here. So let us say that it's going to iterate through all this element and then prints the, let us say, user dot let us say ID. Okay, let us just print their ID. Let us load this page. It is going to print all the 3 users and their IDs. Alright, but actually what we need to do is to print their first name and this also the surname. oh, user dot, okay, let us see, first name, last name, underscore name. Okay, so let us print this. It is printing all the 3 users and their last name. So let us put this in a h heading 2 tab. Okay, heading 2, yeah, let us just use heading 4. So after doing this, let us say after printing the user, the next thing we want to do is print the image. Okay, that is the user's profile picture. So in Vue.js, if you have how you can put in data in the properties, you can put a colon before the property. Let us say attribute, it's called attribute, colon src, this is source of the image, what you want, the image you want to print. So let us put in the user dot avatar avatar. Okay, let us delete the rest, we don't need it. So let us refresh. So these are the users. So you see here are their avatars. So let us just have a line after each user. Okay, you have user George bot, and that is avatar. So also let us print their email addresses. User dot email, so georgebot and then his email after his name. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Now this API is helping us to get users and their email. So now what we can do, we can make use of the pagination. It is giving us the first 3 users, so maybe we might add a button here and click next if they are next, and if they are not, you know, we can have 2 buttons here. Previous, we can just make it simple, and then another button. Okay, let's see what this 2 buttons. So whenever we press here, it is going to make an API request also by incrementing the page count, by incrementing this page count, so let us say we need 2 methods, next and previous, next and previous. So whenever this next function is called, all it have to do is have to increment the page count. Okay, equals to this dot page plus 1. You just need to increment and then call the get users. After it have to increment before making a call to the get user, this dot get users. Okay, so for the previous, all it have to do is just decrement. It have to decrement, that is minus. Okay, so now let us test it. We have next, next. Is it working? It's not working. Oh, okay, we have the buttons, but whenever the buttons are clicked, we don't put any action listeners. So V on click. So what you need to do is on the buttons, you need to put an action listener, on click action listener, view on click action listener. Whenever it is clicked, whenever this one is clicked, the first one is clicked, call the previous. Just type in the name of the function you want to call, previous, and then the same thing with the next one also, view on click. That one, just call the next function, that is the next one. Okay, so refresh your page, go down, call next. Okay, it loads new users, call another one, it loads new users, call another one. Remember, it have only 4, so let us just keep on calling. Now it doesn't have none, so we can go back, go back, go back, go back, go back. There are no more users. Okay, now the counter is 0, and the API call doesn't even accept 0. So now we have these users. So now at least we have completed one task. We are able to start a Laravel project with a VueJS, and then be able to make requests, API calls to external resources. From this, let us say, from this website provide free API calls, and enables us to make API calls without generating any API key and all that. So that's pretty cool. That's why we just choose this simple example. So with this Laravel project, you can see that you are able to just make calls and get users. By the way, this is just an example. You can have any sort of application. You can make calls to any sort of API calls. You can make any kind of API calls. It can be a sticker. You can, the API does give you access to stickers, popular stickers, trending GIFs, and all that. You can make API calls to those applications, and then it will return you the resource. You can print it and do so many things with it. So now just try this. Just try this and try to understand it. That is the most important part of this. That is the most important part of programming. You have to understand what you're doing. If you don't understand what you're doing, you're just following this tutorial without understanding what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, it doesn't make much sense. It won't help. So please try to understand first. Okay, so see you in the next video.